Hello. Hi, Rusty.
Hi, Jan.
Hi. Thank you all for being here at this Hawaii Book and Music Festival conversation between Rusty Komori and myself. I wanted to introduce Rusty to start this off. I've known Rusty since he was a junior tennis player, Mililani courts. I used to watch him playing, and um, I saw how quickly he rose to the junior ranks and became a highly ranked junior player in our state. And after graduating from Damien High School, he got a scholarship to Creighton University in Nebraska. And, his tennis career really took off after that. He became the number one tennis player, I think, in your freshman year, right, Rusty? And he maintained that number one ranking throughout his career. And if you read his books, I mean, he had some marvelous matches and wonderful experiences. And I think it really helped him to grow as a person. Um, you know, Rusty is, because of his exemplary record as a Creighton tennis player, as well as his leadership as the team captain, he was actually inducted into the Creighton Hall of Fame in 2014. So congratulations on that, Rusty. Now, when Rusty graduated from Creighton, he came back home and he started to teach tennis. And our sons, Justin and Jaron, were amongst his first students. And we saw how very effective he was as a teacher, how very motivating he was, what a great communicator. And the kids really, really grew as a result of his tennis instruction. So frankly, I wasn't really surprised when in 1994, he was named to be the Punahou tennis coach for the boys. And therein started a career that lasted 22 years, undefeated in the state tennis championships. And that is a national high school record. So awesome that Rusty and his tennis players at Punahou really could, they still have this record. Now, when Rusty retired after 22 years at the helm, I wasn't sure what he was going to do, but then he came out with a book. And it was such an interesting book. It's called Beyond the Game. I guess you can't really see it, but Beyond the Game, Coaching for Peak Performance in Business, Sports, and Life. And he shared so many of the little anecdotes about how he coached the tennis players. He had stories about many of the tennis players that we knew because our boys played against them. And it was just a wonderful book. And then in 2020, he came out with another book. The second book is really talking about coaching, not just in sports, but in business and in life. And both books are excellent resources on leadership. And Rusty also has a ThinkTech program. Every week, he interviews someone who has gone beyond the lines. And it is a very, very popular program as well. He has done many workshops. He's a motivational speaker. He's worked with businesses and organizations to help their leadership teams. And I am just so proud to know him and to see his growth and to see what he's going to do next. So, Rusty, thank you for being on this program with me tonight.
Oh, thank you so much, Jan. I mean, I feel like I'm honored to be on with you. Like you said, you knew me since I was a junior tennis player. I was 14 years old when I met you and your husband, Randy, on the tennis courts. And yeah, Jan, for you, I mean, I knew that you were a teacher back then for many years. You ended up becoming an educator for 45 years, and you were principal for 15 years. I mean, I think it's so amazing what you have accomplished in your career. And I was so excited when you came out with your first book, Leading with Aloha. And I thought, wow, this is going to be fantastic. And it is an absolutely terrific book. I recommend everyone to get it. And I was extra happy when you came out with your new book just very recently called Educating with Aloha. And that was a fantastic follow-up to Leading with Aloha. And super excited. I hold you in such high esteem. And I think every educator, every teacher, so many students, I mean, students and parents, they need to all get your books, because the insights that you share is really priceless, because you share things that a lot of people might not realize. They only see things on one side at times. So, and Jen, so many people describe or define leadership in various ways.
Mhm.
How would you specifically define leadership?
Well, I think of Jack Welch's quote, when you are a leader, success is all about growing others. And that was always my goal, is to grow everyone to be the best that they could be, so that they are continuously learning and improving and reflecting. And if something didn't go wrong, it's not just to say, well, that didn't work, but to say, why didn't it work and what might we do to make it work? Um, I think that was the most important thing for myself as a leader. I'm sure is for you as a leader too. You wanted every one of your players to reach their potential and to do the best they could, right? Um, I read a quote once that said, in times of turmoil, lead from the front. When times are going great, lead from the back. And that really made a lot of sense to me. When you think about it, if there's a budget problems and you have to rearrange the personnel or get rid of people, or let's say there's a natural disaster or a pandemic, your people are going to look to you as a leader for leadership. They want to know that things are going to be okay, that they're going to be okay. And the leader has to be strong. They're the face of that organization. But let's say things are going really great. Your teachers are going great things. The people in your company are being innovative and trying new things, and profit is up. That the leader doesn't have to be in the front. You want to give kudos to the people who are doing the work. And I think that's how I felt as a leader. I really wanted the people to know that I appreciated what they did, and for them to be able to take the bow. I mean, it's like, a quarterback, they make the great pass that wins the game, but it was their offensive line that gave them time to throw the ball. It was the receiver who ran the route and got free and caught the ball. So when you hear them talking afterwards in the interview, they always give credit to the others who helped them. And I think that's really, really important for a leader to be aware of, and to make sure you are appreciating the people who are doing it. I was just reading again about that story, that the last match against the University of Missouri, and how you took what your coach told you and you understood what he was made, and you came back and you won that even with a bad ankle, so you I think that as a coach, I know that you really have given kudos to the kids, and how and you share that the kids understood, I may have lost my match, but our team won. And that was because you made sure that they understood they were part of a team.
Yeah, for me, I wanted to make sure that everyone felt like they were contributing, that they were a
Yes.
part of the team, whether they were number 12, number one, it didn't matter. But
Hmm.
for me, I would focus on everybody's strengths,
Right.
and not necessarily on their weaknesses, because I wanted to make their strengths stronger,
Hmm.
because that is really what made them good.
Yeah.
Those certain strengths that they had, and that was what was going to make them better, is if we could make their strength stronger. But
Hmm.
yes, I mean, along the way, it's good to work on some weaknesses, but I think the focus is really to improve the strengths as good as you can. And for me, like with Justin and Jaron and my other players, and the girls, my girl students as well, it was all about attitude and effort. Can you give 100% attitude, positive attitude, and can you give 100% great effort all the time? But if they kind of lacked in one of those two areas, then I really got on their case. But because, you know, it's something that we had control of. And I wanted to make sure that we're controlling everything that we had control of and
Mhm.
really not worry about things beyond our control.
Mhm.
And Jen, I want to ask you, you know, you and I, through these years, we've seen so many different leaders, some good, some bad. And
Mhm.
what do you feel are some specific things that the best leaders do? How would you specifically describe your leadership style?
You know, in my book, Leading with Aloha, I talk about how my upbringing really influenced how I led, whether it was leading my class or leading the school or leading the Millennium Junior Tennis Club or leading my son's soccer team or whatever. But really, I think that it's always about the students. You know, it's about the kids. You want the kids to gain the most benefit from whatever. So I think that was always my vision. And you have to have a strong vision to be a leader. You have to know, uh, people at my school would say, Jan, you're the keeper of our vision. And I think that the leader is the keeper of the vision. Um, I think you need to be open, you know, to new ideas. I think I was. Um, I think working as a team, as I mentioned, and you know, in my book, I talk about working in the pineapple fields and how those old ladies really helped us newbies and really kept us going throughout the day, so that by the end of the summer, we were actually quite productive, you know, workers. But in the beginning, it was really hard, but it took those ladies and the team to help us to feel that we were contributing to our gang. And you know, I think everybody has strengths and we just got to look for them. And that's what makes a good team, is people who have different strengths coming together and working together. Um, and, you know, I, we talked about this earlier, but, you know, being a coach, you know, I think sometimes that saying that we're teachers kind of is a, not necessarily the best thing, because it implies that you're going to teach somebody something and that they're going to automatically learn it. And that's not really how it is. You know, you can teach somebody something. They might learn it for a day or two, or they might learn it for the test, but then they instantly forget it afterwards. So I think by being a coach and asking questions, seeing, you know, working one-on-one with with a kid, whether it's a player or a teacher or whatever, asking the kinds of questions to help them to really reflect on what they want to do to improve, or what they want to do as, you know, as their goals, you know, for themselves. Um, and I think the last thing is I was always willing to learn new things. I mean, I think as a leader, you have to be able to learn, because there's so much information out there now. Um, you know, times have changed so much. When I was growing up, when I became a teacher in the beginning, I mean, there was no such thing as phones in the classroom or internet, or computers or any of those things. And today there is so much information out there. We have to be willing to say, I want to learn more. I'm going to try to find out more and continue to learn, so that you can be the best for the people who depend on you for their their leadership.
Now, Jen, your son Justin wrote the foreword for your second book, Educating with Aloha. How
Mhm.
special was that to you that he wrote that foreword?
Oh, well, you know, my brother Chris wrote the foreword for my first book. And when I was going to do my second book, I thought of who'd be a good person, and I thought of Justin. You know, Justin has been a great first son, oldest son. He's been a role model for his brothers, and you know, he's not here in Hawaii anymore. You know, he's got his two sons and they're living in Vegas, and but we talk all the time. And so when I asked him to do the forward, he gladly accepted. And he immediately got to work and he said, how does this sound? And you know, so we worked it through, and I was so proud to have him write my forward. And I told him just so pleased with how it turned out. And you know, all of our sons are wonderful. They're all different, and but we're wonderful sons, and I think you know them, and you would agree with me. What advice did somebody give you that really made a difference for you? And you had said Coach Ed Hubbs from Creighton, and he said to expect adversity. Life is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Sorry. Okay, so tell me about that, because I love that quote, and I love the way that it obviously has made a big impact on your life. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that Coach Ed Hubbs, he was my Creighton coach, and he's a leader that I admire because I learned so
Mm-hmm.
much from him and what he did for us. He showed that he cared about us, and for him, it was always about hey, preparing us to look forward to challenges, to welcome adversity because it's inevitable, it's going to happen, and so to have our mindset looking forward to these challenges, looking forward to adversity and dealing with it, getting through it. And once you do that, you become stronger for going through that experience. You become tougher and smarter and faster and just so much better by going through that experience. So for me, I try to coach my players into really welcoming adversity, and we're all going to experience adversities in our lives sooner or later, and some of us will experience deeper levels of adversity, but adversities nonetheless. So it's something
Yes.
that we need to look forward to. One of the things you mentioned earlier about that story when we were playing against the University of Missouri, and I rolled my ankle, and it was actually a chipped bone and a torn ligament, we later
Oh,
found out.
wow.
But one of the biggest things Coach Ed said at that moment when I was in the third set is he said, instead of worrying about the things that you can't do, focus on the things that you still can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was tremendous advice from him. And I mean, what an impact that had when he said that to me in that match. And I've been doing that basically every single day since then. And I've been trying to instill that in a lot of my players.
Mm-hmm.
But those quotes, I mean, life, I mean, it's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. And look at the COVID situation that we're all dealing with here. Some people, the effects are depression and suicide, but
Yes.
it's literally a choice. You can choose to be positive or you can choose to be negative. The amount of effort it takes for either one is about the
Mm-hmm.
same energy, same
Mm-hmm.
effort. So why not choose to look at that one positive among 20 negatives
Uh,
and really build your life that way? I think that's just healthy living.
mhm.
Um, and Jen, if you can just turn that light on that you had earlier, that would be
Okay,
good.
it was okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was really good. Just leave it
Okay.
on like that. And Jen, I want to ask you, you mentioned that you were open to different solutions and new possibilities as a leader, and that's what the greatest leaders do, is they're always open to different solutions and new possibilities. They welcome that. Now, what are your thoughts about taking calculated risks? Because in my book I talk about risk promotes growth. Now,
Mhm.
how important is it for you as a leader to take certain calculated risks? As leaders, we want our people to, we're trying to train them to do the right thing all the time. And that's why I always say there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. But it does take courage for a leader to make tough decisions. It does take courage for your team or your players or your teachers to really do the right thing when it might not be popular. And so I just wanted to see if you had any examples of courage in that respect.
I do have an example, but I don't think that it's really appropriate because it was a personnel thing, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
Um, a teacher saying something to me about what she observed in another person doing, and that took a lot of courage for her to do that. And um, I think that sometimes we keep our mouths shut, even though we know that something is going on that shouldn't be, because they're afraid of repercussions, or they're afraid that somebody's going to find out who told on them. And so I try to always make it a situation where if they felt that something had happened that they didn't think was right, that they could come and talk to us, and that we definitely would not divulge who was the person who alerted us to it. And but it does take courage sometimes, because you don't want to be seen as the person who got somebody else into trouble. So
No, I like hearing that. And yeah, we want to encourage people to have the courage to, do what's right. And Jen, my number one priority as a tennis coach was to develop champion athletes of character first, and then great tennis players second. And I know that
yes.
you are, so huge on character. And what are your thoughts about character?
I think that that's what we are trying to build, kids with strong character. And I think it's really hard sometimes with all this social media and um, nonstop news and differing viewpoints, because kids are exposed to so many things today that we never did before. We never had before, and I think that you know they need to be able. I really think that as a school, from the time they're in elementary school, we need to teach them about character. We need to teach them what's the right things to do. And I know many schools are today doing that. They call it social emotional learning, or something similar, where kids really are learning what is the right way to do things. How do you tell someone? How do you talk to someone if you feel that they have not treated you well? I mean, um, or how do you treat people so that they want to be a part of your community, your classroom community? Um, I think character is one of the things that we should be teaching at school. It is an important part. I mean, it's a family thing too, but it's also a school thing, because in school you'll have different kinds of scenarios that kids uh, have to um, come across, that they encounter, and they're going to do it for the rest of their lives. So if somebody is teasing someone else, what do you do? Do you sit on the side and laugh, or do you go up and tell the kid, that's not very nice of you to do that, I think you should stop? Little things like that we do try to teach them at school. And we hope that they'll learn those lessons so that they can do it on their own without somebody telling them to do it. So it becomes a part of them and their character.
Yeah, no, I like hearing, I mean, character, it's all about character, because for me, if I had a player that would win a state singles championship but had a bad attitude and bad sportsmanship, I would not be proud of that player. But if a player lost in the state singles championship and had a great attitude, represented our team with class, and gave great effort,
Mhm.
I'm the most proud of that player, because it's all about character. And a lot of it, that when you go beyond the lines, when you do these things correctly, then winning is a byproduct, or results or performance is a byproduct of doing those things that we should be doing. I want to bring back words like honor, integrity, respect. I mean, those are words that
Yes.
I heard often growing up. And we don't really hear those type of words or actions nowadays. So I really want to bring that back.